Tell Us How to Make It Better is partnering with the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services.
One of the biggest things that I tell people and the biggest mistakes people make is you have an idea for something. Let's take allergies, for example. You go and you Google it and you see, oh, there's a company called Find My Food. I don't know, whatever it's called, right? And you go, it's done, been done. You tell your partner and your family, I had this idea, but no, it's been done before. Well, so that's the biggest thing. Just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean you can't find an angle that is different or better, or you can improve upon it and all the rest of it. And often the fact that someone is already doing it tells you that there's a market there. Often if nobody's doing it, it's actually the reverse. It's actually not necessarily a good thing because people might have tried to do it and it might have failed.
I'm George Siegel, and this is the Tell Us How to Make It Better podcast. Every week we introduce you to people who are working on real-world problems and providing actual solutions. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's Tell Us How to Make It Better podcast. Every week I try to introduce you to somebody who has recognized a problem that exists out there somewhere in the world, and rather than complain about it, they're trying to come up with a solution or a way to make it better. My guest today is Multipotentialite Charles Burns. He's a serial entrepreneur, podcaster, author, and motivational speaker. He's also known for his appearance in front of 7 million people on the UK's version of The Apprentice. Charles, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. 7 million people on The Apprentice. I mean, that just jumped right out at me. What was that like for you?
It's actually quite crazy because I try and explain to people. So in the UK, population fluctuate the estimates, but let's say it's 70 million just for ease of numbers. So it's 1 in 10 people in the UK are watching that show. It's on every week. It's prime time. It's 8 or 9 p.m. on a Wednesday on BBC, which is one of the major channels over here. And what no one can prepare you for, and they give you a little bit of a kind of heads up when you're filming and some media training, they call it, is being recognized all the time, everywhere, by everyone. No matter, the show in the UK transcends all age demographics rather, race, religion, everything. It's just a very popular show. And when you take out, say, toddlers on that number and say, the older population, you go to like a restaurant where, your average age is between 20 and 50 or whatever, 50, 60 maybe. It's maybe more like 1 in 5 or 6 wow. Know who you are. And so, that's what I explain to people, like, imagine then, like, you go in a restaurant and people come up to you all the time. You can't eat because, people want to ask for photos or ask a question. And, the one thing that I learned from being in that spot and let's call it being recognized rather than famous, even though it's kind of the same thing, sure, is that if ever you meet someone that you are fond of, that you've seen, on a podcast, or you don't know them, but you know of them through either an author or in yours as a filmmaker, whatever, then like make sure when you're speaking to them, you're asking interesting questions, because what you don't want to do is lead with what I call the FAQs, the frequently asked questions. Most people will come and they'll ask you the same question, and they don't realize that for me as an individual, like, I want to engage in conversation. And if all you're asking is the most basic of basic questions, in the UK, the question that's asked in that show is, does it really only take 20 minutes to get changed in the morning? And I'm like, is that the most interesting question that you have for me? And that is basically, what happens.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that too. I used to work in television news, and so people around town would know who I was. If you're having a bad day or you're in a bad mood and you snap at somebody or you just don't treat them very well for whatever reason, and you're certainly entitled to your bad days, that's their impression of you. So they're going to go around saying, that guy Charles was an asshole. Yeah. And you might be the nicest guy in the world, but that's all they're going to ever talk about, and they'll tell everybody.
Yes. So I was very mindful of that and aware of that. So and it's very tiring, actually. I'm sure you're aware, like trying to, even if you're not in the best space and someone comes up to you and I don't recall, I'm no martyr, but I don't remember once ever turning anyone down in a conversation, even if it wasn't the right space. I'd always try and do my best. And also I would get a lot of tweets or social media from generally younger people asking for or even parents sometimes, can you send a happy birthday wish to this one and that one and the other one? And I always oblige, because my view is, like, if the shoe is on the other foot, I would love the person that I want to do that to do the same thing. So I always made it my point to do the best I could, I suppose, in that way.
Yeah, I remember to this day all the celebrities that were rude to me. I have my hit list of celebrities that people that weren't nice. How far did you make it on the show?
So the show runs for 12 weeks, 12 weeks in TV time, and I made it through to 8 weeks. So what's that, 3/4 or something, or not? Near enough.
Did you ever see the Donald Trump version of that show when it was on here? Did you ever see any of that?
Yeah. It's I mean, if you watch the two shows, there are it's quite similar. So our version of Donald Trump is a guy called Lord Alan Sugar. He's also a billionaire. He's also very opinionated. He and Donald Trump, if you look back in Twitter, and if you still can see Donald Trump Twitter, they have spats all the time because Donald Trump like kind of owns the show, kind of not. So he's like, I own you, Alan Sugar, and like, you know what Donald Trump likes. so yeah.
We can move on from that. Okay, so getting back to the reason I had you on here, I just get off on this other thing because I find it so fascinating to know I'm in the presence of a true celebrity, which makes this so much more fun. What is the problem or issue that you identified that you're working on right now?
Sure. So I think it was pretty much 3 years ago, next week or in the next few weeks. I had been struggling with my dietary, I didn't know this was the point, but with stomach issues, go with that. And I went to see a gastroenterologist and a few different ones. And eventually, because of my ethnicity, I'm Jewish, it's quite common because of the small gene pool that lactose intolerance is a pretty common thing. And not to bore you with the detail, which is pretty straightforward. Lactose intolerance is basically where a person does not have the required level of lactase, which is the enzyme to digest lactose, in their system. And being of an ethnic minority, I suppose, in some respects, what tends to happen is the gene pools obviously work the way they work, but with lactase, Jewish people tend to have less of it anyway. So say there's a threshold bar, we'll have like a little bit above the threshold. And if you say get a common cold or anything, you can just lose the amount of lactase you need and you can't get it back. There are pills you can take, but naturally you can't ever get that back. So that was one thing. And then I also figured out a bit later, kind of by tinkering, that gluten as well was also something that I'm not a celiac, and a celiac is somewhere it's actually a genuine illness because the body attacks itself. For me, it's just an uncomfortable, place to be, basically, with gluten as well. And so I'm lining up at a food court, nothing special whatsoever. I'm in line, and there's a Chinese restaurant, food court, and I get to the front, and this is this grid, and I've never seen one before because why would I? So I look at this grid, and across, there's the dishes there, and then there's the different allergies, and there are 14 major allergens that in the European Union, of which the UK is still involved from a legal perspective and will be going forward in this space. Every restaurant has to report upon every single dish within this 14 allergens. So I'm looking, I'm scanning it, and I can't make a sense of it. And I speak to the server, they've got no idea, and I end up eating something and whatnot. And I go up to my table, and I'm like, me being me, I'm like, this is really bad. Like, surely this is the first time I've ever experienced this, but surely gluten intolerance is not a new thing. Lactose intolerance is a new thing, or any dietary requirement is not a new thing. Everyone has their own, even if it's just, I don't want to eat meat today, or I want to eat meat today, whatever it is. So I was like, okay, there must be out there something in technology. The reason I would look in the technology space is because it has a broader base, helps more people, and has a global reach. So I looked around the app stores, and sure enough, there was nothing out there. And I spent a day, and I really went deep, and I looked at what the business plan could be. And I was in a really creative space then, because I struck on something that I thought was fantastic. So I had the logo down, and I had all these things down within a very, very short space of time. And I sent it, or a post about it, I'm not quite sure which, to a friend of mine who lives in the States. And he happens to have loads of allergies and has them for years, nuts and fish and all the rest of it, before it was popular. He was one of the originals. And he's like, did you come up with this? Because this is sensational. I'm like, well, I mean, I did. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea too. But he was raving about it. And honestly, ever since, and I'm not saying this in an arrogant way or anything like that, but whenever I meet someone, I explain them what I'm working on. It's so self-explanatory. People understand the need, even if you're not in that environment yourself where you need the app that I'm going to talk to in a second. Everyone gets it and understands why it has a global impact for good.
Sure. As soon as I heard about it from you, I was like, I was all over it because I have much the same dietary challenges that you do. In fact, I went to a Chinese restaurant down the street from here. The first day I went in, I told them what I was allergic to, and they said, "Oh, we have a dish for you." And I ate there for 2 years. And one day I called to order, and they go, "We don't make anything gluten-free here," because the guy was so stupid at the counter. He didn't even know what I was talking about. So I was eating that, and I was always wondering why I didn't feel great after eating food over there. So most restaurants don't even know. They are not,
No.
and they could kill somebody. Fortunately, I didn't have a deathly allergy, but
Yeah.
their lack of putting the right person at the front desk could kill you.
It's really frightening. And I say, for me, I'm fortunate that my personal dietary requirements can be managed, shall we say. I can eat tiny amounts here and there, but I tend to not. But of course, there are people out there where you have an actual milk allergy, or as you mentioned, a celiac with a gluten allergy, where actually the body starts to attack itself. Blood vessels constrict. You stop to breathe. That's where anaphylactic shocks come in. People have heard about those things, and where EpiPens come in and adrenaline to kind of loosen up the airwaves. But yes, it's very, very serious. I mean, in your country, in the US, from what I understand, there are 32 or so million people registered with food allergies. So that's maybe 1 in 10, something of this nature. But what I say to people is, like, it's not just the 32 million in the US that affects. It's all the family, it's all the friends, it's the colleagues, the partners, and all the people around them. Because you're not going to go to a restaurant that has no gluten-free offering, or I hope not, with someone that is in your party, you know, of 2, 4, 5, 6, whatever the case may be. So it really is a bigger and wider issue than just which is a large number of people that have the direct suffering from it. So back to what the actual solution was. I'm a very I have this thought process that, believe it or not, my driving instructor gave me this keyring when I passed my test, and it said simplicity is genius, and I try and live by that as much as possible, because I think it's a really great way to live. And so whenever I come up with a kind of problem in a business, for my life, I'm like, right, what's the simplest solution? Or if I'm trying to do a business deal, I'll call it the low hanging fruit. It's the same thing in essence. So I looked at the problem, and I thought, well, really, it requires an app. You want an app on your phone, whether it's a Google Android phone or an Apple iPhone. You want to be able to input your dietary preferences at the forefront, which you can always alter at any time. You want to see restaurants nearby where you are, and then if you go into a different country, be able to search for those restaurants as well. And then crucially, you want to be able to go into the restaurant via the app and see a customized menu of only the dishes that are applicable and you can eat. Everything else is just noise, and it's just, you know, more information than you need. And once you're on with that information, say it's 5 or 10 dishes, out of a 50 dish or 100 dish menu, all of a sudden, if you do have a serious allergy, of course, then you can call up and say, hey, I believe you do a pad thai that's gluten-free. Is that actually suitable for a celiac? Because it's very different, of course, you know, how the kitchen prepare food, etc. is gluten-free doesn't mean necessarily right for a celiac, for example. But you're armed with information, and you have a direct conversation that lasts a few minutes versus a back and forth of the whole menu. Could take a long time, who you're speaking with, all the rest of it. And similarly, if you're at the actual restaurant itself, you're just asking about a couple of dishes, and it's a very specific yes or no question, rather than all this gray area where people become uncomfortable. You're in a business meeting, on a date, you're spending half an hour. I mean, I was in a restaurant the other night, and it was in Manchester, where I'm based in the United Kingdom. I went out with about 8 people. I didn't know many of them, a few of them I did. And I said, I'm gluten-free and I'm lactose-free. Now, this is also the problem in a lot of these restaurants, the nicer restaurants generally, the lighting's poor. So you can't really see what you're looking at, right? So they bring this menu, really huge menu, the actual menu. Then they bring me another menu, the same size, which is gluten-free. Then they bring me another menu, the same size, which is lactose-free. And then the guy goes, oh, and you're also going to need to cross-reference this against this guide we've got, because, you know, if it's gluten, I'm like, I was sat there and I genuinely thought to myself, forgetting my app, I'm like, I've lost my appetite. I have no interest in spending 30 minutes trying to figure out what I can and can't eat. This is absolutely absurd.
You'd have been better off bringing a sandwich or something.
Right. Or just not eating. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in my world, the alternative would be, I've already got an idea for the restaurant. Or if I don't, I get in the restaurant, I've got my app, I know where I'm eating, of course. I put in the restaurant name, and all of a sudden I see 3 or 5 dishes. Fine, perfect. Mr. Waiter, can I have the chicken tikka masala? Make sure it's this and that. I know that. Can you check the kitchen? No problem, sir. I'll come back and done. It's a 2-minute conversation, and it just
No, I
smooths
love
everything out.
Yeah, I love the idea. I love
the waitering team are more comfortable. It takes the onus off them a little bit. The back of house more comfortable. The individual's more comfortable, and so everyone around's winning. And for me, again, with every solution I come up with in any walk of life, everyone has to win. I don't believe in this capitalist society where, like, for one to win, someone's got to lose. Like, I don't believe that's necessarily true. And so, yeah, I'm always looking for kind of, maybe altruistic of me, I don't know, but why should you create a solution that only works for one side of an equation? If you can create a solution that works on multiple sides, you'll do better, I think.
So tell me how us dietary challenged win. How do you gather all that information? Because when I go on Yelp, if I go on a restaurant's menu online, if I just Google for places like that, they don't have everything that they say they have online. They've gone out of business. Restaurants tend to come and go pretty quickly. How do you keep something like that fresh and accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a challenge. It's similar to the challenge that the likes of OpenTable have, that in the UK we have Deliveroo, but you'll have the same with Postmates or Uber Eats, those sorts of companies. And so the truth of the matter is, to create something of real value like this, which has a global appeal, takes time, and it's small building blocks. And there's no, in terms of getting it into the hands of the right restaurants, there's no solution other than going in and speaking to those restaurants and getting a relationship with the restaurants. This notion that the tech term would be scrape the data. In other words, you just put a robot onto the website and you take down the allergen data, etc. You can probably do that for the chains, McDonald's and KFC, where it's pretty standardized. But most of the places people are wanting to eat, the independents, they don't have teams that do allergens. They don't have the information on the websites. Most of the team in the restaurant don't even know. So that is the big challenge that we're grappling with. However, once you unlock that, you start to become a very viable business financially. And I guess the way you go about that is you start in small pockets. So you start in one area, you get a bunch of restaurants in the area, you market then to people who would go to those restaurants in those areas, and then it snowballs and snowballs, and you build teams around that, and you start to kind of expand internationally. So it'll take time, but look, it's very cliche, but I'm all about like planting little seeds, and eventually you get an orchard that's with ripe fruit. If it was slapdash bang and done quickly, it would have been done already, and it wouldn't be so appealing to me, I suppose.
So where are you at in the process? I mean, I wish you had this thing tomorrow, because we've gone out to dinner the last couple nights, and I've been frustrated by having to ask so many questions and having to see they bring out that nasty little gluten-free menu, and then you have to figure out, well, do they mean gluten-free or do they mean dairy-free? Do they mean vegan? Do they mean all the different things? So where are you at?
So we had some great momentum when I first started the business, which was 2019 through to 2020. Of course, then the pandemic hit, which is the world's worst time to start an app like this possible, I think, in the history of mankind, near enough. So that was unfortunate. And then restaurants reopened in, I think, June, July of last year properly. But even then, they're all in kind of like fight or flight mode, trying to survive, etc. So we kind of did a few bits. We've got some restaurants in the UK, probably about 100 restaurants, nothing major, a few thousand users right now. But this year is where we're really going to kind of push the business. So we're actively looking for investment. So if anyone watching and listening is interested, or knows people that are, then that would be really great to kind of have those conversations. And we are looking to grow internationally. So it may well be that we start it in the States because the environment's better there potentially. It may well be that we start it here. But the way we're going to start the business is we'll start with these kind of small pockets, as I say, in different areas and kind of neighborhoods almost, and then, grow exponentially from there. But what's great with the business is that once users start to go, or diners rather, start to understand that, wow, this is so useful to me, there'll be a push and pull. So they'll go into a restaurant and say, hey, why aren't you on this app? That helps bring us obviously business. and vice versa. When a diner goes into a restaurant for the first time and they ask, oh, do you have a gluten-free menu, or do you have any food that's available for someone with a nut allergy? They'll go, hey, download this Allergy app, all the information on there. So, it'll start to snowball, and there'll be a point in time, like a tipping point for the business in the next kind of 6 to 12 months where it'll start to take off.
Is the app going to be free to the consumer, or is it going to be one of those we have to pay for in the App Store?
No, I firmly believe that it should be free to consumer. So it's currently available in the Apple App Store and Android App Store. So please feel free to download it, and you'll find me on social media, etc. And my email is founder FOUNDER at Allergi, which is ALLERGI.co.uk. I'm sure you'll pop it in the show notes. So if you've got any questions, or you think it should be in your city, or your restaurant you've been to, they think could be potentially good for, all is for anything like that. Even if it's just you don't like it because of this, I'm always interested. But in terms of it's free to the consumer, and the restaurant side is where we'll be raising our revenues from, plus some advertising models, plus the data as well that we get, etc. So the consumer will always be free to use.
Now, a lot of restaurants, especially the smaller ones that I've been in, because I used to, when I was doing more video production, I would try to get them to do marketing videos and everything. They tended not to want to spend money, and
Correct.
they were very particular about what they spent their money on. So what kind of obstacles do you run into when you try to get money out of these guys?
So I alluded to it before. I think one of the biggest challenges is that they think they've either got it covered, which 9 times out of 10, as you know, and I know, that they don't, because the status quo is so poor. I mean, to give you an idea how bad the status quo is, I mean, in the UK, I think it's actually better than the US because of this legal requirement to have the information of these allergens, but on hand. How they actually give that across, convey it to the diner is an open interpretation. Most people do use these grid systems, like a matrix almost. So that's pretty good compared to a lot of other countries. But I mean, just for example, we had a review from a diner who downloaded the app, and paraphrasing here, but she basically said that the fact that someone had taken the time and thought to solve this problem had made her cry, because she can now go out with the kids to eat. And like, to have that effect as an entrepreneur at the very early stage of your business, like, tells you that you're onto the right track here. And of course, if you can tie that in financially, then of course it becomes more lucrative. So yes, we are a for-profit business, but there is a huge social impact that we will have with this app.
Yeah, you probably already thought about getting some big corporate sponsors for it too, that probably have an interest in that kind of thing. What's the name of the app? What's it called if we go to the App Store?
It's called Allergi. So it's spelled A, or Alpha, Lima, Echo, Romeo, Golf, Indigo. So Allergi with an I rather than a Y. And you should be able to find it in the App Store. And I say, please let me know what you think. And we're, just so people understand, we are in high level communications with some of the biggest multinational food chains globally, who are all pretty interested. So particularly with technology businesses like Allergi is, it just takes a bit of time to kind of one restaurant to fall in with another, and before you know it, as I said to you before, there's like snowball effect where all of a sudden people are coming to you from the restaurant side of stuff. But yeah, our biggest challenge remains, I alluded to before, is explain to the restaurant that it's not just the 1 or 2 celiacs that they see coming in the restaurant, which is more and more common now, by the way, which I'm sure you're aware of. But as I said to you before, it's all the other benefits. So one benefit, fringe benefit, being, if they provide this service, what does that say about the restaurant? Well, it says they care about their consumers, they care about the customer. Sure. Even if that customer doesn't actually have any dietary requirements, the fact that they've gone to the extent of making something useful, if you're not that way inclined, one, you're going to think, wow, this restaurant really care about what they put in their food, which is a great thing. And 2, you're probably going to recommend it to your friend who's the vegan, who's got a nut allergy, all the rest of it. So from a marketing point of view, it's phenomenal. It's free marketing for them, because you're going to go, a recommendation for a peer-to-peer is obviously the most lucrative one possible. So that's very useful as well. And of course, as I mentioned before, the fact that if you have a dietary requirement, chances are you're probably not eating by yourself. You're going to be the influencer that brings in lots more people into the table that you sat at. So it's basically just trying to educate the restaurant as I say, just timing has been quite poor because restaurants have been in this fight or flight mode. That's in the UK starting to turn around now. I mean, I was trying to book a table last weekend, for example, and it was almost impossible. And it wasn't possible, actually. And I've got a reasonable clout in Manchester United, so thinks I couldn't do anything about it. So, yeah, I think people are now dining out more, and I think there's a part of there's an appetite now for what we're doing more so. And what's great is I speak to people like yourself, or I speak to different people, and the enthusiasm for what we're doing has not dwindled whatsoever over the period of time. So yeah, really exciting times.
Oh yeah, no, I would be all over it. Now, you totally lost me when you spelled allergy. The examples you gave of the letters.
They're not how you use them?
No.
Okay.
I've never heard that before.
I thought it was that's the international phonetics. But you do different. You use.
I would have said L as in Larry. What did you say? L as in what?
Lima.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going. Okay, kind of confused me.
So it's ALLERGI.
There you go. Yeah. No, I definitely got that. The name's not that tough. Interestingly, when I go to a lot of places, like there's a vegan place right down the street from my house, but vegan does not mean gluten-free, and there's so many variables that have to be sorted through. I would think that would be a huge thing for a restaurant to be able to sort that out, so they don't have to explain it to everybody. If you could just look on that app, even if you go to, there's a place that I used to go to in Texas, BJ's Restaurant, and they would have that grid like you were talking about, where they would list all the things in different size. You know, you have to be a scientist to be able to figure out what's in that food. It takes the fun out of eating.
It's ridiculous. And of course, with the business that we're looking into, going into rather, it's not just food allergies and dietary requirements. You're talking about anyone else that's got any particular food that they need to either avoid or they need to be aware of. So whether it's a diabetic, whether it's someone that's calorie counting, and ad infinitum. You know, there's so many. What I say to people is, it's like, even if you don't think you have dietary requirements, you'll have preferences, right? You'll have a preference for a type of food, or you have a preference for a type of dish. And also, I always think, right now, if I said to you, you're in, where about you based, George, right now?
Tampa, Florida.
Tampa. So if I say to you, like, where is the best lasagna in Tampa, Florida? You'll have an opinion, as will everyone else, but there's no real way to quantify that right now. There's no real way to go, oh, like that's actually the best lasagna and whatever. So I think there's so much in the food space that's not being done. I think it's very stale. That's another, pardon the pun, but I think a lot of it's very stale. Open Table has been obviously an innovation for booking restaurants, and of course the proliferation of the food delivery apps has been a big thing. And now the new thing in the UK is grocery delivery apps in like 10 minutes or 8 minutes or 7 minutes. Like everyone, they're throwing billions at this thing, which isn't really a problem. What we're solving is a genuine problem. I wouldn't be involved with it for the period of time that I have been. And I mean, on our board, we have the co-founder of Starbucks. We have the UK's leading professor in pediatric allergy. We have some amazing data experts. We have marketing experts. We have the original sales director of Open Table. So, these people do not get involved with businesses if there's not potential here. So, I guess watch this space, pardon the pun, but I mean, it's going to be a really interesting year for us for sure.
I was at our temple for an event one night, and they had called and said, does anybody have any dietary issues? So they had a gluten-free pizza for me. And I went up to the woman and I said, thank you for having some food for my people. And she goes, the Jewish people? And I said, no, the gluten-free people, because nobody ever worries
Jewish
about
gluten-free people. So a real minority.
Yeah, it is. And you feel like such a leper when you're sitting there with 6 or 7 people and you're asking, does it have this? Does it have that? And everybody's kind of looking at you like, wow, you're fun to dine with.
Yeah, it's horrible this is what I try and say to people. Like, it's horrible for the person eating. It's horrible for the server. It's horrible for everyone else on the table. It's horrible for the chef. It's all round. No one's having a good time during this experience. So it's really ripe for some innovation, some something like that we're doing. One layer I didn't mention, sorry, is when you download the app and you see restaurants nearby and you go into the restaurant individual's page and you're seeing that the curated menu, the personalized menu for yourself, you can then click one level deeper into the dish and see which allergens are in the dish. You can see which diets it pertains to, and that will get more and more rich as time goes on. So I think things like photos will come in there. I think reviews of the dishes will come in there. And I really want Allergy to be a central space for every time you go out, you go straight to there. And then you go from there within the app. You can book to Open Table. You can you can order your food through Uber Eats or whatever the case may be. But you're using Allergy as the focal point to decide what to eat and where to eat.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And also a note to all dessert places: when you think you're taking care of the gluten-free people, stop shoving macaroons down our throat. That seems to be the only thing that a lot of these places have. And I said, where did you do a survey to find out we all like macaroons? How about throwing in a chocolate chip cookie every now and then or something?
Yeah,
they don't care.
And the truth is, I say I'm gluten lactose free, so particularly with desserts, it is a challenge. But the girl that I'm dating right now is a good example. Like, she made some brownies the other night, and they were with sweet potato. I couldn't tell the exact recipe, I don't know, but it was like sweet potato, coconut flour or something, if that's even a thing. All these things taste delicious. You would never know. So it's definitely possible to do. It takes a bit more thought, without a doubt. It tends to be healthier, let's be honest, like gluten-free and lactose-free, as if it was a rule. You're removing a lot of fried food, you're removing a lot of milk, which we know is obviously is not really great for us if we look into it properly. But again, people get this confused where just because you're gluten and lactose-free doesn't mean you're vegan, and vice versa. And people get this all convoluted thing where it's like they're over, again, as I say, like I see a lot of overcomplication. It's really quite simple to say, I just want to know, for my particular diet, what can I eat? That's it. I don't want anything else. I don't have to, as you say, study some guides, spend 10 minutes, like really awkwardly, and then order like some French fries because that's all there is, or whatever,
The one other side of that, though, is a lot of times some of the ingredients they have to put in to make something gluten-free or vegan, they put some scary stuff in there, like palm oil and a lot of potato starch, a lot of things that you go, I don't really want to eat that either. So the other side is, will people want to eat it if they really knew what was in it, even though it didn't have gluten?
Yeah, it's very true. And it's interesting on that point, because in the UK, come April of this year, 2022, there's a new law coming in where any restaurant with above 250 staff, so that basically means the chains, that basically means the restaurant groups, which there are quite a lot of independent restaurants in the UK that control a lot of the higher class restaurants, maybe you want to call them that, will have to have calorie information on the menu. And I experienced this more so when I was in the States just now with my family on vacation. And it does sway you a bit, even if you're not necessarily like looking to, get a healthier option. When you're seeing a dish as 2,500 calories or a salad's got 1,200 calories, you do start to ask a question. You're like, why? And I think in the UK, particularly what's going to happen with this law, it will still trickle down at some point to the independent restaurants. But I think what's going to happen is people will start to go, why is that curry got 1,500 calories? And then the restaurant will start to sell less of it. And I think the incentive then with the restaurant was, how can we make this healthier? Now, calories is only one factor. Granted, there's lots of other things going on. But I think it will be a pain in the backside for the restaurant trade to begin with. But I think it will going to be a good thing. The more information we have of what's going on food and why, the better. I mean, I was once showing a friend of mine, I was plant-based for a while, and I bought a plant-based wrap from a supermarket. And it's like, yeah, but what's actually in it? And I hadn't really thought about it because I, at that point, wasn't so familiar with the food space. I am much more now. And I thought, well, plant-based must be healthy. Sounds healthy. So I turned the packet around when he's talking to me, and I was horrified. The basic rule of thumb is, if you can't pronounce and don't know what that ingredient is, it's probably not good for you. Like, that's the general rule I would say. If it's not something that you come across in primary school or something, and you need a degree in chemical engineering from Harvard, then probably not the best thing. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe how many ingredients there were. So with everything, you've got to be super careful. I mean, you look at the big trend at the moment, or has been the past year or two, has been the Beyond Meat burgers and all the other brands that exist out there. But actually, look what's in those. yeah, I'd be careful,
Yeah,
so
they shove a
I
lot
think
of
we'll have
soy
to
in
be
there
fine.
and
Yeah,
things that I wouldn't necessarily eat. There's a chain here. I don't know if you have it over there. PF Chang's.
I know of it, but it's not over here. No.
Yeah, once they started putting ingredients and calories on their menu, I stopped eating there because just broccoli with brown sauce was like 1,500 calories. It was a ton of sodium in it.
Shocking.
It was like, okay, I can't eat this. Imagine everything else I'm getting at this table. I'm probably getting 5,000 calories. And
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I've been on myself like a personal weight loss journey in the past 7 months. I've shifted about 45 pounds, which is 20 kilograms for people watching in that language, or over 3 stone for people watching in that language. So it's quite a lot of weight. And the thing that the three things that I tell, because I get asked all the time, like, how have you done it? What have you done? Whatever. Of course, going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week does help, no question. Of course, what people don't realize is how sedimentary our lives are, right? So just getting 2 30-minute walks, one in the morning, one in the evening, one is wonders for your mental health and gets you out there into the music or a podcast, or even just go in nature, whatever you want to do, breaks your day lovely. And that's your 10,000 steps, which I think is a good barometer to start with. And then the third thing, which is relevant to this conversation, is just eating more consciously. Like I've been dating this girl and I've been out in the past 2 or 3 weeks and quite an awful lot. Went to a restaurant last night that was Chinese, for example. But it's just being smart about the portion size that you're eating, smart about like what you're eating. And I think, you just feel so much better when you eat good quality food that is cooked properly. It's not full of all the nasties. And as I say, something I'm hoping my app, one of the ambitions is to kind of really to open the lid and show people like, look, like this is what's in your food, this is what it's doing. So there's some further potential with the app, I think, going forwards. Right now, the low-hanging fruit is to help people with dietary requirements, but I think longer term, to be able to help people that says, hey, like, in this dish, there is this that really you might want to avoid, or whatever the case would be. So there's some really interesting mileage with it for sure.
well, on behalf of myself, I wish you'd hurry up and get this thing done. It would make it easier for me to get out
I wish so too.
and eat more often. So what advice would you have for any entrepreneurs out there that, I mean, obviously this idea has taken you some time. They don't just all of a sudden go to market.
Yes.
What would you tell somebody who is a serial entrepreneur, somebody who just wants to get started and do something? What would you encourage them to do?
Yeah. So the simplest thing is in everything you're doing in your day-to-day life, there's going to be things that are frustrations, things that are annoying to you, I suppose. That's the best way of putting it. And that might be something as simple as you wake up and you brush your teeth and you don't have the toothpaste, or the deodorant doesn't work so well, leaves yellow stains on your arms, or whatever the case may be. It could be a simple things. And it's just going, okay, like, why is that annoying to me? Is there a solution out there that's good enough? Yes or no? And then, are other people having this problem? They're the kind of the three things to start with. One of the biggest things that I tell people, and the biggest mistakes people make, is you have an idea for something. Let's take allergies, for example. You go and you Google it and you see, oh, there's a company called Find My Food. I don't know, whatever it's called, right? And you go, it's done, been done. You tell your partner and your family, I had this idea, but no, it's been done before. Well, so that's the biggest thing. Just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean you can't find an angle that is different or better, or you can improve upon it and all the rest of it. And often the fact that someone is already doing it tells you that there's a market there. Often if nobody's doing it, it's actually the reverse. It's actually not necessarily a good thing, because people might have tried to do it and it might have failed. But that also could be a positive. It's just all about interpretation and looking at things positively, and trying to see how you can have a benefit to people. And I think the other underlying factor here is something that I'm always telling people about. I have a weekly like vlog that I do called Burning Issues, which is on my YouTube channel, where I for 4 to 10 minutes, I'll just talk about something that I think is relevant and hopefully inspiring and helps people. And one of the big things I talk about is like sense of purpose. And with that purpose is a sense of serving others. So your idea, whatever your business idea is, if we're going down that road, has to serve other people. It cannot simply be, I want to be a millionaire by 30. and any means necessary. You might get there, good for you, but I'm not really interested in that. Whatever you're doing has to serve people. And it doesn't have to be so altruistic. So, for example, I'm also active in the luxury watch business, right? Well, someone doesn't need a luxury watch, but I'm still serving them. I'm still helping their process. I'm making sure they don't get ripped off. I'm making sure they get served properly with trust and aftercare sales and all the rest of it. There's still a service element there. So I think, whatever you do, there has to be a service to a greater purpose than just your own monetary gain. There's nothing wrong with monetary gain, but I don't believe it should be the barometer by which we measure an idea is it successful or not.
Great advice. So what would you, once again, give people the way to get in touch with you and how they can find you?
Certainly. So I'm active on pretty much all social media. The best social media for me is LinkedIn. And I think it's just Charles O as in the letter O for Oliver Burns. But if you type in my name, you should be able to find me pretty easily. There's one burning desire, and that's the name of my podcast, actually, I'll come to in a second, that I have in this life. It's very egotistical, but it is what it is. When you Google my name right now, particularly in the States, I don't come up first. The guy that comes up first is a cartoonist. He's very famous, and it really irritates me. So that's something that I'm aiming to do. But if you type my name, Charles Burns, in the Apprentice, maybe it'll come up on LinkedIn or Manchester or something like that. So LinkedIn is one. Of course, like Instagram could be, or Twitter, but say LinkedIn is the preference. And then my email is always open, which is founder, as in a founder of a company, at, and then Allergi, which I've spelled ALLERGI.co.uk. And welcome to email me or whatever. And then finally is on YouTube, where I have the Burning Desire show, which George has been interviewed for. That's how we've come across each other. So that'll be a fun watch, hopefully, for you guys to see. Where I bring on people who are passionate about all different, endeavors in life. And then on top of that, I do this, as I mentioned before, this kind of weekly vlog called Burning Issues, where I'll talk about anything from about how to, serve people, or life mission, or it could be the last one I did, I think, was to do with momentum. The fact that, how you generate momentum and you keep it going and all those sort of things. And then the last thing I'm doing right now, which is public, is on LinkedIn. I have a book review that I do kind of bi-weekly. And just whatever I'm reading, I try and help people with the key learnings and takeaways that I found in the book. It's going pretty well, actually. So quite a few things going on.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all these contacts for you in the show notes so people know how to get a hold of you. And good luck with the app. Like I say, I'm gonna check it out. But I wish it was here now, and I'm looking forward to getting it soon. I'm rooting for you.
I'm working on it, George. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and the opportunity to share my story.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Tell Us How to Make It Better podcast. If you enjoyed what you were listening to, please feel free to leave a review and share the link for the program with your friends so they can become listeners too. And if you have any suggestions for future shows or comments about anything that you've seen, there's a contact form on our website, and I would always welcome hearing from you. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.